Good evening. This is Monday, October 4th, 2021. In many places around the world, today we remember St. Francis of Assisi. Francis was born in 1182 in the city of Assisi in Umbria in Italy and died there in 1226 on the night between October 3rd and 4th. He was the son of a wealthy cloth merchant. His early life was spent in frivolous enjoyment, but a series of harsh experiences, including war, captivity, and sickness, turned his heart from worldly ambitions. A breakthrough in his life came when he kissed a leper whom he met on the road. Afterward, he took to emptying his father's warehouse to give to the poor. When his father publicly upbraided him before the city council, he stripped off his fine clothes and vowed henceforth to recognize no other father but God in heaven. While praying before a crucifix in a ruined chapel, Francis heard a voice commanding him to repair the church. At first he took this quite literally, setting about to rebuild the old church. But in time he repaired the church in a more profound way. Attracting followers, he initiated a new order, the Friars Minor. In their strict faithfulness to the gospel, seeking out the poor, the sick, the marginalized, and embracing poverty and nonviolence, they turned the values of their society upside down. Stories of his life reflect the joy and freedom that were hallmarks of his spirituality. In his life and in his relationship with the poor, with women, with outcasts, and all of creation, Francis represented the emergence of a new model of human and cosmic community. His last years were marked by terrible suffering, including the wounds of the cross that marked his hands and feet. Francis is perhaps the most venerated saint in Christendom. He's the patron saint, obviously, of San Francisco in California, but also of Santa Fe in New Mexico, and many churches and congregations, not only within the Catholic Church, but also in the Anglican tradition, in the Lutheran Church, and various other denominations. Some of you have been to visit Subiaco with me, one of my favorite places in the world, about 30 miles from Rome, where St. Benedict began his monastic life as a hermit. Francis was there for the dedication of the church at the Sacro Specchio, where he served as deacon for the consecration of that church, which was celebrated by his friend Pope Gregory IX. And there are two frescoes there of Francis, one of him serving as deacon at the dedication service, and one a full-length portrait done before he died. This is the oldest portrait we have of Francis, and while the artist was not particularly good, it does give us an idea of what Francis actually looked like. Here are a few of my thoughts and bits and pieces about Francis. One of his themes of preaching is this: your God is of your flesh. God lives in your nearest neighbor, in every human being. He believed that nature itself was a mirror of God. He called all creatures his brothers and sisters. His deep sense of brotherhood under God embraced not only animals and the environment, but all other beings. And he declared that he considered himself no friend of Christ if he did not cherish those for whom Christ died. At Greco near Assisi, around the year 1220, Francis celebrated Christmas by setting up the first known presepio or creche or nativity scene. His nativity imagery reflected the scene in traditional paintings. He used real animals to create a living scene so that the worshippers could contemplate the birth of the Christ child in a direct way, making use of all the senses, but especially sight. Both Thomas of Celano and St. Bonaventure, early biographers of Francis, tell us how he used only a straw-filled manger set between a real ox and donkey. According to Thomas, it was beautiful in its simplicity, and the manger acted as the altar for that Christmas Eve Mass. Many of the stories that surround the life of Francis say that he had a great love for animals and the environment. The Fioretti, or Little Flowers, is a collection of legends and folklore that sprang up soon after his death. One account describes how one day while Francis was traveling with some companions, they happened upon a place in the road where birds filled the trees on both sides. Francis told his companions to wait for me while I go to preach to my sisters, the birds. The birds surrounded him, intrigued by the power of his voice, and not one of them flew away. He is often portrayed with a bird, typically sitting on his hand. Another legend from the Fioretti tells that in the story of Gubbio, where Francis lived for a time, there was a wolf, terrifying and ferocious, who devoured humans as well as animals. Francis went up into the hills, and when he found the wolf, he made the sign of the cross and commanded the wolf to come to him and hurt no one. Then he led the wolf into town, and surrounded by startled citizens, he made a pact between them and the wolf. Because the wolf had done evil things out of hunger, the townsfolk were to feed the wolf regularly, and in return, the wolf would no longer prey upon them or their flocks. In this way, Gubbio was freed from the menace of the predator. On January 1st in 1990, the International World Day of Peace, Pope John Paul II said that Francis invited all of creation, animals, plants, natural forces, even brother, sun, and sister moon, to give honor and praise to the Lord. The poor man of Assisi gives us striking witness that when we are at peace with God, we are better able to devote ourselves to building up that peace with all creation, which is inseparable from peace among all people. Francis is sometimes known as God's minstrel or troubadour. Some consider him to be the first Italian poet. Like many reformers since his time, he believed that people should be able to pray in their own language. And so many of his writings were not in Latin, but rather in the Umbrian dialect of his hometown. His most famous poem is the Canticle of the Sun. Perhaps the best-known English version can be found in the United Methodist hymnal at number 62, All Creatures of Our God and King. But there are many other musical versions of Francis and his life. Franz Liszt, for example, wrote several piano pieces based on the Canticle of the Sun. Amy Beach, the first successful American woman composer, born in 1867 and died in 1944, did a setting of the Canticle for chorus and orchestra. Leo Sowerby, former organist at the National Cathedral, also did a setting for chorus and orchestra. Olivier Messiaen, a famous organist and mystic, wrote an opera based on the life of Francis of Assisi. The American folk singer Donovan wrote a song called Brother, Sun, Sister Moon for the film of that name by Franco Zeffirelli in 1972. An absolutely beautiful film if you've not seen it. I'd like to read for you my favorite version in English of the Canticle of the Sun. The text is by Howard Chandler Robbins, who died in 1952. It appeared in the Episcopalian Hymnal 1940 and is currently in the hymnal called Common Praise of 1998 of the Anglican Church of Canada. Most high, omnipotent, good Lord, to thee be ceaseless praise outpoured and blessing without measure. From thee alone all creatures came, no one is worthy thee to name. My Lord be praised for brother sun, who doth the skies his course doth run, and shines in brilliant splendor. With brightness he doth fill the day, and signifies thy boundless sway. My Lord be praised by sister moon, and all the stars that with her soon will point the glittering heavens. Let wind and air and cloud and calm and weathers all repeat the psalm. By sister water be thou blessed, most humble, useful, precious, chaste. Be praised by brother fire. Jocund is he, robust and bright, and strong to lighten all the night. By Mother Earth my Lord be praised. Governed by thee, she hath upraised what for our life is needful. Sustained by thee through every hour, she bringeth forth fruit, herb, and flower. My Lord be praised by those who prove in free forgiveness their love, nor shrink from tribulation. Happy who peacefully endure, with thee, Lord, their reward is sure. For death our sister praised be, from whom no one alive can flee. Woe to the unprepared, but blessed be they who do thy will, and follow thy commandments still. Most high, omnipotent Lord, good Lord, to thee be ceaseless praise outpoured, and blessing without measure. From thee alone all creatures came, no one is worthy thee to name. Amen. I wish you a pleasant evening.